demonstration of our support for George Floyd.
Thousands of people around the world have gathered to protest the death of George Floyd, including here in Berlin, the German capital, where artists spray-painted this mural. George Floyd died after police officers knelt on his back and neck for several minutes. And some of Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe," are now being carried and chanted by protesters around the world. In New Zealand, large crowds peacefully took to their knees. In Europe, soccer players defied strict rules to show solidarity too. Concerns over safety almost cancelled rallies in Sydney and Belgium, but the rallies ended up going ahead peacefully there. Meanwhile, in Paris, peaceful protests were overshadowed by riot police firing tear gas on protesters. Activists threw debris and set fires during the demonstration, which was unauthorized due to coronavirus restrictions that ban public gatherings of more than 10 people. The responses from foreign leaders to Trump's handling of the protests have also varied. When Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked about it, he initially responded with a prolonged silence, before saying,
"We all watch in horror and consternation what's going on in the United States."
Germany's foreign minister called the protests legitimate, while German Chancellor Angela Merkel condemned the killing of George Floyd by saying, "It is racism. We also know something like racism in our country, and therefore we also have our hands full." And Pope Francis said that we cannot tolerate or turn a blind eye to racism. Meanwhile, in China, officials have used the protests as an opportunity to accuse the US of a double standard when it comes to the handling of protesters.
How concerned are you about a violent crackdown by the Chinese in Hong Kong?
Well, I am concerned. I wouldn't want to see a violent crackdown. I really would like to see China, in a humane way, solve the problem in Hong Kong.
If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
All I ask for is reform, bro, reform. It's not too much to ask for, please tell me.
But why are the demands of the US Black Lives Matter movement resonating in so many other places around the world? What we've learned from the various demonstrations is that many protesters share with Americans the same anger and frustration over racial injustice in their own countries. Here's one voice from Brazil.
A gente está aqui hoje porque a gente quer viver. A gente está aqui hoje porque a gente está cansado desse Estado genocida. A gente está aqui hoje para dizer que não mais, não mais. Eu quero fim da polícia militar, não acabou.
Brazil's black communities say the country's poorest neighborhoods are the sites of frequent police brutality. Last month, 14-year-old João Pedro Pinto became the latest victim of what activists say is indiscriminate state violence. Last year, police killed over 1,800 people in Rio alone, the highest death toll since records began in the late 90s. Both in Brazil and the United States, police officers fatally shoot more people in a week than many other countries do in a year on average. But even in countries that don't have the same shocking numbers, high-profile cases have sparked accusations of systematic injustice in the past. In Australia, protesters this week referenced the death of David Dungay, an Aboriginal man who died in jail in 2015. He died after saying, "I can't breathe," 12 times. Meanwhile, in France, the death of Adama Traoré in police custody 4 years ago was still on the minds of many protesters this week too. What's different now is that anger over systematic racial injustice has met outrage over a US president who to many abroad symbolizes that system. Here in Germany, over the last few days, a number of major newspapers have called President Trump a a racist. And on the streets, that criticism sounded even harsher.
No Trump, no KKK, no racist USA! No Trump, no KKK, no racist USA!
And with more protests planned over the next coming weeks, this is a message that is unlikely to disappear from the streets anytime soon, especially with US elections coming up in a few months.